Hi there. Thanks for joining me for this session on talking about why web marketing cannot survive without social media. One of the things that's happened over the past 5-10 years is social media has really come into being an important factor in not just utilizing social media to get attention and things like that, but it's become an important factor in making progress with our overall web marketing campaigns. Somebody like me who's been in the industry since 1998, we kind of came from this background that everything revolved around SEO, optimizing pages, optimizing keywords, get your rankings, and then we started doing link building to help assist with that. Well, now link building is kind of morphing over into the web marketing side of things to where you couldn't do well in web marketing without links. Well, now you can't do well in web marketing without social media. So this presentation is designed to just kind of take you through why web marketing really doesn't get the traction that it used to unless you add in that social media component. So real quickly, let's talk about, let you know a little bit about me. This is me, and I do what I like to call web presence optimization, because we don't just focus on SEO anymore, or search engine optimization, or designing websites, developing websites, but really it's about optimizing the entire web presence of a person or the company and looking at all aspects of their online marketing to really optimize that presence for greater exposure. If you want to follow me, you can on Twitter, Google+, and LinkedIn. Here are the URLs. And of course, a lot of you probably know that I wrote a book called The Best Damn Web Marketing Checklist, and there's a URL there, webmarketingchecklist.com, if you want to go and learn more about the book or buy the book, which is available on Amazon, iTunes. And of course, we use the hashtag BestDamnBook if you want to tweet about it. And of course, this is my company, Pole Position Marketing. So if you are interested in learning more about me or company or what we can do to help you out with your web marketing efforts, you go to polepositionmarketing.com. All right, so let's get into this and talk about search versus social media on how these two things kind of work together, where they were once kind of two different beasts, but now they're very much intertwined. Organic search drives the majority of all traffic, and this has been true for years and years and years, where this survey done in November 2012 through 13, clearly organic drives the traffic. That's where people are coming from. They're going to search engines, they're typing in their keywords, and therefore they are coming to websites. But you can see over towards the end of 2013, we see social referrals really begin to climb and taking over a little bit, getting closer to that point where search is less relevant and social becomes more relevant for getting that traffic. And then even in the last 2014, we see that social media traffic has surpassed, on a couple different occasions, the traffic delivered by search. Now, those traffics, the traffic delivered from search and social media is a bit different. Now, where search might have one intent, social media has a different intent. But the overall point of understanding this is that when we're talking about getting eyeballs on the site and building brand recognition and building authority, social media plays a very distinctive role, and at this point is becoming more important for branding than search ever was. So when we look at, social media is getting to that point where it is driving more traffic than search. And this is because we look at millennials today, 71% of them visit their social media sites on a daily basis. So it's not often that we go and say we search on a daily basis because we're not always looking for something. But social media, we're always interacting, we're always engaging, and it's through those social media channels that we begin to build that branding and build that engagement with our audience. So social media really has become integrated into our daily lives, where we see that, every day 5 million people hit the Google+1 button. Every day that 1 million web pages are connected through Facebook, and 40% of Americans say Facebook is their number one influencer of purchases. And this was back in 2011 it was 24%, and today, or 2014, it's 47%. So again, Facebook itself is just a medium where people engage and connect, but that is driving their influencing decisions. They're influencing their purchasing decisions. And of course, 23% of Facebook users log in at least 5 times a day. Now that's a good deal. People going 5 times every day, going to Facebook, and then that's where they're being influenced. And we can see similar stats like this on Twitter and Google Plus, where let's just not worry about Facebook itself, but all of these social media channels are driving these purchasing decisions. They're driving the influence that people have on their lives. And so if we're not involved in social media, we're really not at a place where we can influence people the way that they are where they are being influenced. And that's a huge loss for any company who wants to grow and wants to build their brand. You have to be in that place where you're influencing people, and that's done on social media. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean people are being influenced by the brands. They may be influenced by the people, their connections, their friends who are talking about the brands. But again, you have to be making a connection with somebody somewhere in order to build that connection and become that influencer, or at least be a part of the influence that they're getting. Looking at time spent on social networks, in the U.S., 16 minutes of every hour is spent on social channels. Now, this is a hard stat to believe, and I think you just think about it, where people are just killing time. They're waiting in line. And normally, or in the past, we would wait in line and we would stare at the person in front of us. But now we wait in line, we pull out our phones, and we start checking email, looking at text messages, or going to Facebook and some of our other social channels. And we can see that these numbers are similar in Australia and the UK. But I think it's more and more common to where we don't like to wait. So we find a way to fill our time. And I do this myself. If I'm watching a TV program with my wife and we pause the DVR, she goes out of the room for a second to go to the kitchen or whatever, I grab my phone and I turn it on and I start surfing. Now, personally, I'm more of a news reader than a social media surfer, but many people will go onto their social media channels and start scrolling through and seeing what other people are saying on their channels. And that's where they're getting influence. So it's really important to understand that the social media influence is really huge, and we spend almost a quarter of our day looking at social media and being influenced by the things going on there, and that's something we really do need to recognize. And because of that, businesses and marketers love social media. Because we're looking at that as an opportunity. And if we look at some of these stats here, 93% of marketers use social media for business, and that makes sense. Hey, we know people are on social media, so for business, we need to be out there using that. 70% of brands have a presence on Google Plus, which has shown a 4% growth. 70% of marketers have used Facebook to gain new customers. 34% of marketers have used Twitter to gain customers or generate leads. So we're seeing that it's not just that people are using social, but it's that businesses are using social, and this is important. It's not a matter of are we using social, because the search engine algorithms are looking at how and why and where people use these things, and so Google's not just looking at, okay, people are using social, big deal. They're looking at that businesses are using social and people are engaging on social. So now that becomes a part of the algorithm. That becomes a factor or something important for the search engines to really determine relevance. And we'll get into a little bit of that later. Top 3 social media sites used: Facebook, Twitter, Google+. And the least 3 popular used by marketer are, StumbleUpon, Tumblr, and Flickr. And again, a lot of that is probably just because the medium and what's most helpful. And one of the things we say with anybody engaging in social media, any company engaging online, is find the network where your audience is, or the network that is going to give you the best response from your audience. And that's hugely important. It's not a matter of just, hey, we need to be on every social media channel. It's, hey, let's consider this and make sure we're at the right social media channels and using those. Bottom line is social media itself isn't all that valuable from a business perspective. If we're looking at where conversions come from, 51% come purely from search. So even though social media can now be driving as much traffic and can be a huge influence in the conversion, search itself can stand alone in a sense of driving that, but search and social now are a huge factor, where social alone isn't much of one. Social media alone isn't a huge factor for getting conversions, but it is an influencer. So when you combine search and social, you're now looking at almost 100% of the pie between search and social. And these two things do have to work together. So yes, search itself gets 51%, but we're reaching a point where the algorithms are now looking at social media and saying, how do we incorporate these into our algorithms? Because this shows relevancy, this shows value, this shows what people are really focusing on. And so the search engines want to incorporate that to make sure that their algorithms are far more valuable, because that's what they want to do. They want to present what people want, and one way to read what people want is to see what they're doing on social media, see what they're talking about. So I would expect over the coming years we see this pie to decrease on search alone and increase on search and social, because for no other reason than the algorithms are working those two things together. Okay, so let's move on to, looking at how social media changed web marketing. Through the history, social media kind of came in and just it built and built and built, and now we're at this place where social media is just, it's sexy. It's what people want to do. It's where they're spending their time. And whether it's Facebook or, the next new thing, is people love social media, and they love to find these new social networks or social channels, and they love to engage with them. And every day I seem to find out about this new social media channel that all the celebrities are using, and I didn't even know it existed. And I'm not keeping up on this. I personally am not a huge social media person. I don't engage with it a lot, and I think celebrities have a lot of extra time on their hands, so they can find all this stuff and engage with it in ways that most normal people can't. But that kind of puts this aura of social media that, everybody needs to be there. It's what people are doing. It's how you stay engaged. It's how you interact with people now. In fact, just a couple weeks ago, I found out that I got a wedding invitation over Facebook. I didn't even know, because I'm not on Facebook enough that I'm checking all of these things. And I'm just thinking, who does wedding invitations over Facebook? Apparently the millennials do now. They don't send out old school paper invites, and I'm sure some people are, but it's now normal for somebody to think, I'm going to send out a wedding invite over Facebook. I'm thinking, send it to me over email, but okay. But that's because to them, social media is the place. That's where everybody is, and that's where they need to be. And it's fun, it's entertaining, and it's desirable. And social media is very closely tied to branding and loyalty when it comes to businesses, where that's where we go now to build brand. That's where we go to get customer engagement and to interact with our customers, and that's where people go to complain about businesses. So businesses need to be there in order to interact with those people making complaints and saying, hey, how can I make this better? Rather than letting the users or the customers control the narrative on, hey, I had this bad customer experience, the company can get in there and start taking some of that back and saying, hey, what can I do to improve your customer experience? What can I do to make this right? So social media, it really ties in branding and loyalty. Excuse me. And we can see that, people are more likely to follow a business after they make a purchase versus once they've tied to that company. Once you say, okay, I've made a purchase in that company, and in the past we might make a purchase and then we might go on somewhere else and do something else, but if they have a good experience with that company, they're going to be more likely to say, hey, you know what, I want to follow their social stream. I want to engage with them. I want to interact with them. I want to know more about them. I want to keep up with what's going on. So we can use social media not just to get customers, but to maintain customers that we've already gotten. And we have to be able to really tie that in and interact with people and make that available. And we talked a little bit before, social media influences purchasing decisions. Whereas we see internet search, that's 92% of purchasing decisions. But if we look at the social generated things here, blogs and social networks, that's 79% of the influence that people have. And you could even make an argument that, you know, message boards are also social media, you know, but sticking to, you know, people putting out blogs and then taking those blogs and posting updates and things on their social channels, there is a huge opportunity here to be a part of the influence that you can make in whether somebody does business with you a first time or comes back and does business with you a second time, or just being in that place where you have a chance to really improve that customer experience just by communicating with them and seeing or showing them that you are doing everything you can to make your company better, make your interaction with them better, make their experience better. So social media plays a really important role there. Now the question came up a few months back, do social media shares help with SEO? And Moz did a study and they said yes, social media shares do help with SEO, and then Matt Cutts from Google came back and said no, they don't. Those things aren't really connected, so we're looking at, you know, correlation versus causation. But the real question isn't do social media shares help with SEO, it's does social media itself help with SEO? Let's put aside the shares. The shares are, hey, I like this, I plus one this, I forward this, I retweeted this, whatever. And for now, the search engines are saying no, those things aren't part of the algorithm. But there's more to social media than sharing, plus oneing, retweeting content. There's a lot more. So we have to look at the whole of social media and look and determine, is there value in social media beyond a specific share? So that goes to correlation versus causation. I like this little graphic, and Matt Cutts shared this originally in his response to Moz. But you got somebody who says, hey, I used to think correlation implied causation. Then I took a class on statistics, and now I don't. The other person says, sounds like the class helped. Well, maybe, because we don't know. Is that correlation or is that causation? And this kind of really does a good job of telling us or showing us how social media may really help with our search engine rankings without actually having a direct tie to it. And that's one thing that people have a hard time understanding, is it's not if you do X on social media that's going to turn into Y on your rankings. But I think we can kind of give people an understanding of this when we look at, how about a commercial on TV? Does running a commercial on TV help your rankings? Well, I'll say yes, it does. Not directly, not because Google is factored TV commercials into their algorithm, but because a TV commercial can drive awareness, and it can drive people to the website, and it can drive people to doing searches. And when people go to the website and they do these searches and then they start sharing things on social media and they start linking to it from their blogs, that adds to things that are factored into the algorithm. So while the TV commercial itself doesn't offer a direct cause to search engine rankings, it can offer a lot of strong correlations to that in the big picture, in the grand scheme of things. So, you know, basically you have correlation assists the causation. The social media correlations, these things that happen in social media, don't impact rankings directly, but they do things that do impact rankings. So it's the assist. Social media provides the assist. create something that then translates into rankings through a whole different route. And basically, I like to say that social media increases ranking opportunity. And that's what it is. It gives you better opportunity to rank for Google searches. It gives you better exposure, and it just increases all of these signals that search engines tend to look at to see what's valuable. Therefore, what needs to go in those search engine rankings. All right, so let's talk about how social correlation impacts SEO specifically. And again, these are things that they're kind of vague, they're kind of broad, but at the same time, we're looking at the big picture and trying to understand how the correlation thing works. And one of the things that very specifically is when you post something, a link on Google+, studies have shown that Google can get to that site and index it within 6 seconds. So as soon as you go to Google+, share a link, Google indexes that page. Now, indexing a page does not create rankings, but we also know that you can't get a page to rank unless Google has it in its index. So you just created an opportunity to get that page ranked within 6 seconds. Now, all the other pieces have to be in place, but if you don't get Google there to begin with, you're not going to rank. So you have now taken the first step, posting on Google+, get Google there within 6 seconds, and that's not to say they will always be there in 6 seconds, but you get Google there within, very quickly. You now have a opportunity to get rankings that you did not have before you posted that without waiting longer or additional amount of time and who knows how long. So social media grows exposure. We go to social media, we post things, write a blog post or we share something and we put a link out there and Google comes, it indexes it, and then that link also goes in front of other people. It goes in front of our followers. And of course, if our followers retweet it, reshare it, whatever, then it goes in front of their followers. So now we have this exposure that's growing. Depending on the size of my followers and depending on the value that post brought to them, they're going to share it, and then their followers, same type of thing, they're going to share it, and they're going to share it, and eventually it dwindles off, but you have this opportunity now to really get some good exposure for whatever it is that you're sharing on social media, and without that exposure, you're missing an opportunity there, because without that exposure, Google's just looking at, okay, I see a page. Well, the exposure sends signals back to Google. It says, how much exposure is this getting compared to other content that's similar? And they can start going, well, okay, this page gets a decent amount of exposure. We need to make that a factor in the rankings. It's not a matter of tweet, retweet, and now we give you an uptick in rankings. Google's looking at all of these things and doing these comparisons, just like they do with the regular algorithm is they're comparing on-page content with other on-page content. Well, now they're comparing exposure to exposure. Social media also increases traffic to the site because, again, as you grow exposure, you get people clicking in, and they are now going to the site, and they're going to read whatever it was, the content that you shared. So that traffic is a good thing. And again, does a click to your site increase your search engine rankings? No. But if Google is able to, and they can with Google Analytics for a good deal of sites, if they can measure how much traffic any page is getting compared to other pages of similar content, now they can say, okay, this page is getting more traffic than this page, and they're of similar topics. So this page, page A, must be more valuable because it's getting more traffic. And of course, algorithms are very complex things, so nothing is ever as simple as I can explain it here. There's a lot of other factors involved, but if we're just looking at traffic, Google can say, look, hey, that page is getting more traffic. Maybe we want to give that a ranking boost, because people are finding that valuable. We talked a little bit about how links are important. Well, social media, as I said, is kind of the new link building, but that doesn't mean links aren't important themselves, because social media helps increase links. People see the content, and then they either retweet it or they decide they write about it, and they remember this, they're writing a post about something, and they remember what you wrote, and they're using you as a reference, and so you get the opportunity to get links. not just social shares, but true links through blog posts and other content. That's opportunity that you wouldn't have had without social media, because otherwise you're left doing old school link building, which is, hey, here's my content, can you link to it please? Well, now you're saying to the world, here's my content. If they find it valuable and if they want to write about it or whatever, you are increasing links much more organically and naturally than you would ever be able to do with old school link building. And of course, we know that's what Google wants. They want natural and organic. So you increase that linking opportunity. Social media also demonstrates popularity. You put a page out there, you put a post out there, send out a link, and they can see how many people are resharing, retweeting, plus wanting. So they're looking at this going, okay, this is popular. People are impacted by this. People want to see this content, or they're finding this content valuable. So again, that's not a direct correlation to rankings, but it kind of translates into this whole thing. Google wants to put in front of people what people want to find, and if they see something as popular, then there's going to be that opportunity to put that out there and say, hey, let's get this ranking. Signals of relevance. Again, if content is relevant to the user, content is relevant in certain contexts for what people are looking for, social media helps provide the signal of, hey, this content, this page, this URL is relevant for X, Y, or Z. And Google is able to determine a little bit more, not just from looking at what the content says on the page, but looking at what people are saying about the content when they're sharing it or when they're writing about it or linking to it or whatever. And of course, social media adds branding, and this is a big thing. We often don't like branding because branding is hard to track, but at the same time, branding brings people back, and this is a huge assist where if somebody does a search and they keep seeing your name come up in the search result, your business name, every time they see that, it's branded, it's branded, it's branded, and eventually they're going, I see that everywhere. I'm going to go click on there, and they have a positive impression of your company even before they have visited your site because they see your branding everywhere. And we see this when you get a lift in traffic from running paid ads next to top search engine rankings. That branding and being in both places gives an exponential lift to the traffic. And social media does the same thing. If people are following you, you're able to brand with every post that you do or every post that they see or every tweet. So you just have this opportunity to really reinforce your message and who you are and build that on there. Now you're competing with everybody else doing the same thing, so you've got to do it better, but that gives you that opportunity that you wouldn't have had through other networks. And finally, social media here builds authority, and that's really what the search engine algorithms come down to. When we put everything else aside, authority matters so much because Google can look at the page content. They can say, hey, this is topically relevant, but what they're really looking at is what's authoritative here. What is going to provide the most value to the visitors? And ultimately, the most authoritative is going to win, all other things being equal, but even maybe a less keyword optimized page or a less search engine spider friendly page, where maybe there's some issues where the spider can't quite get the content as best as possible, but if that page has authority, it is going to win. And that's what social media brings to the equation here when we're looking at, what's the correlation between social media and search? Authority. That's one of those correlations where it really does build up that authority that is valuable. All right, so where's web marketing going? We talked a little bit about search and social media and how they work together, but where's it going from here? What's going on with this whole thing? So Google's algorithm in 1998, was basically all keywords and links. That was it. Social media and content was nowhere to be found. Neither was site architecture, uniqueness, value, usability, and conversions. None of these things mattered. It was all keywords and links, keywords and links. But today, what we see is keywords and links matter a little bit less, and social media matters just as much as keywords and links. Now, You can see here I put site architecture as being most valuable, and there's reasons for that because I think that's the technical issues behind the search engines finding the pages. If they can't find the pages, can't get to the content, whatever, you're not going to really succeed there much at all. But social media here, what we want to focus on is this kind of sprang up out of nowhere, where this is now a major portion of how the algorithms tell the value of a page or tell the authority of a page. Where's it going from here? 2020? I mean, I'm looking at this going, well, keywords and links, always probably going to be relevant. But now all of these things, social media and content, site architecture, they're all going to weigh pretty much equally in how these things come about. And again, it's not because it's social media, and it's not because it's content, but it's because of the signals that the search engines are able to glean from social media and content, where replace social media and content with authority. And then that is in line with site architecture, uniqueness and value, usability and conversions, and authority. And you get that authority today through social media. There's probably not a high chance that social media is going away anywhere, so that will always be one of the primary signals of authority, going forward. And when it all comes down to it, Google is just looking for the winners. And I think sometimes as web marketers we have this wrong, where we look at Google and we look at search engine rankings and we say, I want to win. I want to get search engine rankings, and that's going to be winning. And Google's looking at it, it's like, no, 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 no. The rankings are just the reward for doing a good job at web marketing. So Google is already saying you have to win before you get the rankings. Google's just looking for those who have already won at the game of good, solid web marketing. And that's what's important to understand. We don't do web marketing to get the rankings and then we call a victory. We do the web marketing to win. And Google will then say, hey, you won, you get the ranking. So the rankings aren't the goal, it's just the trophy. We have to win at web marketing. So Google will say, well done. Well done. This is what I'm going to give you. So just remember that Google's looking for those who have already won. They're not trying to make winners and losers. They're trying to determine who it is that has already won, become the winner. All right, so one thing to remember is that social media is pretty much just rented space. We don't own it. It's just an opportunity that we have out there, and you'll hear this over and over again, where you don't own Facebook. You don't own your Facebook page. You don't own your Facebook profile. None of that. Those can be taken away from you, just like that. Facebook can shut off your stream. Facebook can ban you. Facebook can cut you out, and Facebook can disappear, and you're left with nothing in that space because you don't own it. The only thing you own truly is your own website, as long as you're hosting that yourself. So keeping this in mind, posting to your social profiles isn't enough. That's a way to broadcast, that's a way to engage, it's a way to get out there, but that's not what's going to help you do well. That's just one of those mediums that you use, but you have to drive everybody back to your owned space. So if social media is rented, you need to bring people back to what you own, which is your website. So that's where you will truly succeed, and that's where you will build up your authority. So what we do, how we do that, is we blog to get social traffic to our website. We write good blog posts, produce excellent content, and then we publish that content. And that content is ours because it's on our website, on our hosting servers. Now, yes, we're paying for the servers, and they can cut the stream off, but if you're doing your backups, you can take your content, move it to any other web server, and put it right back up. You can't do that with Facebook or Twitter or anything else. If those things go away or they cut you off, you're done. So keep bringing everything back to your blog. Everything comes back there. That is your home base. Everything that you do starts with the blog. You put it out there, and you want to bring people back to the blog. That's the most important thing. And, of course, not just the blog, but the website itself. And you want to convert your social traffic with email marketing. You know, if you're doing stuff out on social media, you can do some email marketing. You want to get those email addresses. Those subscribers are more likely to convert because they have shown an interest in what you have to offer. So do what you can to really build up your email list, because that's going to be your opportunity to stay in touch even when people move off social media. And we've been hearing of a lot of people moving off of Facebook. So, hey, you spent years and years and years building up your Facebook profile, and you've been getting these email lists, you know, people subscribing. Well, now these people are moving off Facebook, so you can't reach them anymore. Unless you go to, you know, maybe they're on Pinterest now, or maybe they're on Snapchat, and you have to go to these platforms to reach them, and maybe you will, maybe you won't, but you have their email. And as long as you have that, because they've expressed an interest in staying in touch, that email allows you to follow them wherever they go without actually having to be exactly where they are. You're where they are, they sign up, and you keep them until they unsubscribe. So that is your way to stay in constant contact with them. No pun intended with the email service, constant contact. So, you know, and then we got to look at the importance of strong branding. You know, your audience, you need to keep your audience, and when one social channel goes out of style, you need people to follow you, and email marketing is one of those ways to do that. You say, hey, listen, you know, if you're not following us on Facebook anymore, guess what? We're over here on Snapchat, or we're over here on Instagram, or, you know, there's this new network that you can find us on, and you're reconnecting with people, and you want them to stay engaged wherever they are, whatever channel they're in, because you know, we know MySpace, that was the place to be at one point in time. Now everything moved to Facebook. Well, now Facebook isn't even the place to be anymore necessarily. People are moving off of that. So we have to stay engaged with them, and that's that branding that you do over social media through multiple channels that's going to keep them engaged as they move from one channel to the next, and certain things drop off. All right, so let's talk about now how to win at social media and web marketing too. And that's really what we want, right? It's not just about, hey, I want to do social media. Why? Why do you want to do social media? Because we want to win at web marketing. And that is one of the most crucial things here. So it all starts with writing killer headlines, whether it's on your blog or whether it's on a post or a tweet or whatever else. You want to start with a compelling headline, because if the headline doesn't attract a click, then it doesn't matter how many times you retweet or repost or whatever, you're not going to get people to click in and read it. It doesn't matter how good your content is. If that headline doesn't entice them to click, they're never going to read it. So you have to figure out, you know, really how to capture the imagination, how to capture their interest with that headline. And here's a list of several different headline types, you know, direct approach, indirect, news, how to, testimonials, and all of these work in varying degrees. And you know, I would say play around with different ones, find which ones work best for you. Don't always use the same type of headline, mix it up a little bit, but no matter what you have to do, it's got to be captivating. It's got to be interesting, because really that is the first way to get that click. Every headline has to do three things. It's got to grab attention, it's got to compel the click, and it needs to use keywords, because the keywords are what tells the visitor what it's about. And there's some sites now are doing a lot of this, you know, headlines that are just designed to grab attention and compel the click. You're like, oh, I've got to look at that. And of course, there's probably some disappointment when you get there, because you're like, oh, it's not what I thought it was going to be, or maybe it's a little bit interesting, but that's not quite what I was looking for. Versus if your keywords are in your headline, you're giving the visitor a much more signal as to what the content is going to be. And that's one thing we have to do, is to make sure we're capturing the, you know, keeping the scent essentially from the click into the story. If somebody goes, that headline looks interesting, and they go in and they realize it's not what they thought it was, they're going to bounce. They're going to leave. They're not going to find the content as interesting. Yet if they have a good indication of what the content is going to be before they click through, then that's going to help you maintain that interest once they click over. And not only that, but having the keywords in there is an opportunity to probably get more people interested in clicking in that are going to be relevant for what you do. You can write a compelling headline that draws a bunch of traffic, but if most of that traffic isn't going to be valuable for you, then traffic for the sake of traffic really isn't any good. What you want to do is to make sure that you're getting the right kind of traffic, and using those keywords really is going to help get that kind of traffic. And once they get there, then you've got to have that stimulating introduction. And of course, this slide here shows the exact same things that you need in a headline you have to have in your introduction. Because again, if somebody comes over to your site and they go, this headline was interesting, I clicked in, and they find out that the headline or the introduction isn't really doing a good job of keeping their interest, then they're going to bounce again. And they're just like, okay, that was a great headline, the introduction kind of blah, I'm not sure this is the content for me. So you've got that first chance to get their attention with the headline. You've got the second chance to keep their attention with a good introduction. So you have to have both. They have to work together to really engage the visitor, and once they get through that introduction, now they're starting to become invested, and they're going to keep reading through the content and being a part of that. Add visual flair. Here on the screen you can see there's a recipe for potatoes au gratin, and of course now here's one with a little bit more visual flair, and which one looks like it would hold more interest? The one with pictures. So when you are posting, whether it's on social media or whether it's on your blog, add some visuals to keep it interesting. It gives people something to kind of give this visual tie-in, whereas the recipe on the left may be just as good of a recipe, or it may be even better recipe than the one on the right, but the one on the right looks appealing to our eyes. So that's probably the one more likely we're going to go with, because at least we can see something there. And we can do the same thing with our posts on social media and our blogs, is just add something of interest, add something of value. It breaks up the content, it breaks up the monotony, and it just gives, just that additional element of interest that you really need. You want to match the persona to quality content. And there's all kinds of different content out there, and people are looking for all kinds of different things. And one of the mistakes that businesses make on social media and people make on social media is producing always the same type of content. And that's only going to attract one type of person. And my wife and I were talking the other day, and she was saying, well, I heard this commercial on the radio the other day, and it was for landscaping, and they're all talking about how, okay, they're going to make their lawn green, they're going to take care of you. She goes, but what I really wanted to know is what makes them different from everybody else, so I know how to differentiate between them and somebody else. I thought that's good information, but you're a different persona. You're at a different stage of the buying cycle. You're at a different place where you need different information. Now, for most people, they just need, they want to hear, I want my lawn to be green, I want it to be beautiful, I want it to be maintained. Okay, great. And then they start researching, and then they start looking for what makes you different. So that commercial was just designed to capture the interest and bring them in, and now the website is supposed to do the other information. And we have different personas and different people looking at our content. So you want to produce content that is valuable for each of these different types of people that ultimately you do want to bring in. But not everybody is going to consume the same type of content the same way. Some people like videos. Me personally, I would prefer to read than watch a video. And that's just how I am. I'll download a book more so than I want to read a blog post. So that's how you reach me. Some people, they want case studies, they want white papers. Some people are just more photo-oriented or email-oriented or news-oriented. And there's nothing wrong with any of these ways that people consume content. You just need to make sure you're offering the content that different people need if you want to attract that, because not everybody thinks the way we do. And that's the mistake we often make, is we think everybody thinks the way we do, they want the same kind of content I do, and that's not true at all. We have to figure out all the different variables and how to reach our audience and make sure we are producing that content. And you want to stay organized, stick to the point, and that's not just in how we produce content, having a content calendar. being regularly scheduled and all that, but it's also in our posts themselves. Stick to the point. We can often meander, we can get off point, we can, start talking about our pet things or soapboxing, whatever. You want to keep your content organized. You want to have a beginning, a middle, and an end. You want to have a major overriding point. What is it you want people to learn from your post, from your content, from your tweet? What is it there that you want them to really walk away with? So you want to stay organized in telling your story, putting out your message, and you can't tell a whole story in a single tweet, and you can't really tell everything there is to know about your business in a single tweet. But what you can do is use multiple tweets and multiple posts to really tell a story and drive people through your process. So you want to have some type of organization, and that's not to say you can't put out the random things and here's a post and here's this information. But overall, you want to have a plan. You want to have a social media plan and figure out what really is going to work and stay on that plan and stick to the points on that. You want to speak human. We often get in this mode where, okay, I got to get this in 140 characters and I'm just going to, here, put this information out. But people don't want headlines. People don't want talking points. What they really want is a person to interact with. And that's one of the things that we want to do, is to make sure we're talking in a way where we can interact with people on a very human level, and they know that there's somebody there. There needs to be a personality behind the tweet. There needs to be a personality behind the post. If you're just saying, here's a headline and please socialize this, or here's a link to my post, that's not helping people. One of the things I tell my employees when they send me a link to something, tell me why you're sending it to me. Tell me what it is that you want me to get out of this, or what it is that you got out of this, so I can see what you're saying, rather than saying, hey, here's a link. So it's important to provide that context, and we can do that in our social media, provide the context to what we're sharing, and we do that, just being normal, speaking human, talking to people as if they are our friends. And you want to engage. That's one of the most important things with social media, is engaging. Social media is not a publishing platform, it's an engagement platform. It is an opportunity to reach out and communicate with people, not just put our content out there, put our content out there, put our content out there. We have to engage. We have to share our own content, but we have to share other people's content too. And it should be 80-20, 80% other content and engagement, and only 20% of us sharing our own content. So look for opportunities to have a conversation. Look for opportunities to dialogue with people over your social media channels, because if you're not engaging in social media, ultimately you're failing at it. And use social media to provide solutions. It's not just, hey, here's my post, go read it. It's, hey, if you're looking for this, here's the answer. If you have a problem with X, I'm going to give you the workaround, or I'm going to tell you what you can do to make this better. Our job is to use social media to help people make their lives better, and that's what we want to do. Whatever the case may be, whatever it is that you offer, whatever it is that you do and that you are the expert at, share that knowledge, not because you want to share the knowledge and you want people to come to you, but share the knowledge because you want to help people. And that's what it comes down to, is you're not doing social media for your benefit. In a way we are, because we're using social media to build our businesses, but you have to look at social media as a way to benefit other people. You have to use social media as a way to benefit your audience. And that's what you need to do, is look at it as a way to really provide value to somebody else, and hopefully you'll get value at it in return, and if you're doing it right, you will. You need to ask and answer questions, and social media is a great place where people are always asking about things, always looking into things, always questioning things, and you can provide answers. You're the expert in whatever area you're in, whatever it is that you do, you are the expert. So answer those questions. Ask questions. Look for opportunities to gain knowledge and build a repertoire with somebody else by asking questions and letting them answer your questions, and then you can share ideas and pass those back and forth. So we want to make sure that we're really building that dialogue through Q&A, essentially. And ultimately, you want to make sure that people learn something new. And I said this before, you want to educate somebody. Social media is all about giving them the opportunity to learn. I write a blog post not because I want to say things, but because I want people to learn something. And if I am writing something or I am presenting something on social media and there's nothing to be learned from it, it's almost pointless. Now, that's not to say you can't, do your little fun tweets every now and then and, make a good laugh, whatever. That's great. That's engagement. That's building engagement. But ultimately, everything comes down to what are you teaching? What are people learning from what you have to offer and what you're putting out there on social media? That's what's important, is making sure that they really do learn something. And then finally, you need to move them to take an action. They come, they learn, they engage, but all of that ultimately doesn't mean a whole lot unless there's an action taken that is going to benefit the business. We don't want to spend all this time on social media just so we can build relationships. Yes, we are doing things to benefit our audience, but we're only going to benefit us if there's an action being taken ultimately at some point along the way, and we don't want to waste our time. So we educate, we teach, we engage, so we can get something back out of that. And if we're not getting anything out of that, if there's no actions being taken, then we're doing something wrong on social media, and ultimately we're wasting our time. We may be educating people, but there's no quid pro quo. There's no benefit for us, and there has to be that benefit for you. Otherwise, there's no value in spending that time. You're basically giving away everything for free for absolutely nothing in return, and that's not good business. So we give things away for free and help people and learn them, but ultimately we want to see a return on that investment. You got to make your content findable. Just kind of looking at some of the nuances of social media and blogging. You got to use your keywords. Got to make sure that the information is added in there in your blog post and that there is that call to action, because there has to be something for them to do next. You're giving them information, and you're putting that information in a way that search engines can find it, putting it in a way that visitors can find it, and it can be presented to them, and then you want to have a way for them to move from that information to the next step. That's that call to action. What do they do next? What do they want next? And you need to provide that for them. Don't depend on organic traffic. Google can drop your rankings in a day. Social media can help supplement that, and we saw that at the very beginning, where social media traffic is at least even with organic traffic, and those should be working together to drive. And just as you can lose your Facebook profile tomorrow, you can lose all your Google rankings tomorrow. So you don't want to just put all your eggs in one basket and look for one opportunity. You want to build up multiple opportunities, so if any one of these collapses beneath you, you don't lose your business. You don't lose your shirt. You don't have to start over from scratch. You can recover from it because you're only losing one channel, but you have all these other channels which are also delivering traffic and opportunity too. And then finally, setting up remarketing ads, using social media. If you're putting out good content, use some ads to drive traffic there, and that's going to help build your exposure. Stalking on social media is acceptable when it's done right. It's okay to do that. So look for those opportunities to build your brand, build your exposure, and when it all comes down to it, social media is really there as a way to continue to build your authority and build your presence, and that's what Google's looking for. That's the type of thing that they want. They want to build the presence. They want to put in front in their search results the people who have already won, the people who are already doing things right. So we have to look at, how do we do social media right? How do we do web marketing right? And all of these things are now intertwined. So if you are doing it right, you're going to win. Whether you get those top search engine rankings or not, good social media is going to translate into good exposure, and that exposure is going to translate into growing your business. And ultimately, that's what it all comes back to, is learning how to do that. So that's it for me. I hope you learned something and you got something out of this presentation. Again, it's not a technical issue of how social media creates rankings, but it's how we use social media to build the type of online presence that really wins big in all areas. So I hope you found that valuable. Thanks.
Okay, so you were right on the hour. Good job. Great job.
Okay,
Great
great.
presentation.